This is CRM Audio, the Microsoft Business Applications podcast with your hosts, Business Solutions MVPs Joel Lindstrom, George Dubinsky, and Sean the CRM Hobbit Tabor. This episode is brought to you by Maplytics by Inogic. Maplytics by Inogic is a market-leading certified for Microsoft Dynamics 365 geoanalytical mapping app. Maplytics empowers users with powerful map visualizations and routing capabilities within Dynamics CRM to drive better sales, improve business processes, and engage the right customers at the right time. Maplytics now works with Dynamics 365 version 9 and the Dynamics 365 app for mobile and tablet. Inogic's a leading Microsoft Gold Dynamics CRM ISV delivering best-in-class Dynamics 365 solutions as well as cost-effective and high-quality programming services. We thank Maplytics by Inogic for sponsoring CRM Audio, the Microsoft Business Applications podcast. Welcome, gentlemen. George and Sean, how are you guys doing?
Well, finally, you've been avoiding me like a plague for the past, 3 episodes? Something? Always picking up convenient time like 3 a.m.
Well, you've had a bunch of excuses like, oh, I'm traveling, oh, I'm sleeping at that time. You know, I don't know what to do.
It's a well-deserved sleep, as you said.
It is not well-deserved.
Yeah, now it's well-deserved.
Yeah. All right. So, what's to say here about another bad class coming up?
Oh,
you had such a popular first round. You're doing another round?
We're doing rounds, well, in a different geographical region. But yes, we had great success with Bad Masterclass, business application developers in Europe. So we had full classes in London, Amsterdam, Milan, and people ask back then if we're going to North America, and we are. So currently we have basically 2 classes scheduled right after Ignite. So we'll have some news from the Ignite that we can share, and the podcast will be in Toronto if city, kind of trendy city, is your thing. So we're going to our friends in Canada and in a nice location at Microsoft, and then we off to Denver in Colorado. So if you into Rocky Mountains and things, then yeah, absolutely join us for a couple days. So it's 2 days, very intensive. It's a developer class, so you do need to understand code. We're not going to force you to write, but it would be nice if you could write some code for us during the exercises. But otherwise, yeah, looking forward to bringing it to North America and setting up for the future. So,
is there anything you changed in the structure or the content from your feedback from the European tour?
Well, we got so much confusing feedback because half of the participants said not enough exercises, and another half said, well, too much, my head hurts. So we're probably going to keep it as is. We're refreshing the content to bring it up to date. Well, not so much up to date because it's a forward-looking training. It's not so much what you can use now. We do talk about that, but more about what you can use now to set you up for the future. So we're picking on technologies and talking about technologies and developing techniques that will set you up for the future in business application development. So we're talking about CDS a lot, and connectors and Power Apps, and of course, all in the context of beloved Dynamics 365/CRM.
And do you have challenges for people to come to the North American classes?
Yes, your challenge was very popular, Joe, if you remember giving me one. So.
I don't even remember what the challenge was, so it was very, very meaningful for me.
I'm sure it was.
So, where do people find out about it? When is it? What's the details?
The easiest link to go to is crmtipoftheday.com/masterclass. And it will have registration links for Toronto and Denver in Colorado.
Okay.
So great. Yeah, it's early October is the time frame. So pick your slot, ask us any questions. So email CRM tip of the day. So it's a jar at crmtipoftheday.com. There are the contact information by all means. Agenda is there. So come and join us.
Yeah, that's great. So check that out. We'll put a link in the show notes to the tip of the day that talks about it. So we have some platform news for the Business Applications platform. The first thing is, if you've imported a solution lately, you may have noticed some, and run into an error, you may have noticed some more intuitive help showing up, where if you're now importing a solution, and I saw this last week, right around the time they announced it, and it was very helpful, actually, where you're importing a solution, it fails, and instead of the unknown error or whatever the nebulous error message we used to get, now you get a link that says get help, and then it will tell you more details. In that case, we had something where it told us specifically what entity the problem was with and more about what the problem was. So, that's great news. Have you seen that, George?
I have indeed. Solutions errors are quite common. They're more like, I wouldn't even classify them as errors. I would classify them, I'm sorry, I couldn't do what you asked me to, because what you asked me to do is impossible. And these are the reasons. And in the past, we were not told quite specifically what the reasons are. So you had to dig into log, and sometimes successful, sometimes not. You had to use API. So now basically they classified all the errors, whatever they could. Obviously, you would come across of the error that is not yet classified, but they classified error codes and link them to help. So when something happens, straight in, and it explains you why they couldn't do what you asked it to. There's a dependency perhaps, and where the dependency exactly, so you don't have to go and look through the logs and run some queries. So it's great, but if you do find something that is not there, obviously, it's send them feedback, and they would be absolutely glad to help. I think you would land on a page, and if it's generic page, then send them feedback with the details, and that would classify the conditions that you're suffering from and give you the recipe to heal.
Right.
And I think this is great news, because having that additional detail, like George said, so you don't have to hunt and peck and try to find it through queries and troubleshooting, is going to be invaluable, especially when you have these insane dependencies that you're not really clear that you had them to begin with, right? Like someone in your environment installs a managed solution that you may not have been aware was installed. That creates dependencies that in your particular transfer solution or something you may not have taken into account. That's going to be very, very helpful, I think.
Absolutely. All right, so other kind of platform news that we have is we had news this week, actually broken on LinkedIn by Ben Vollmer initially, that the sitemap is changing the unified interface. I don't know if Ben is now the official announcer of new stuff, but anyway.
But it's good that it's coming out now. So
the big news is the sitemap and unified interface is going to be expanded by default. You can still collapse it, but it's kind of like to improve the initial user experience. Right. I love the unified interface sitemap. I love how it gets out of the way. But if you're new and you're first using the system, I can imagine it could be a little confusing. It also changes the color scheme, dark text on light background, new colored icons and hover effect, and some other stuff. It's really not that big of a deal, and especially because big picture, there's not a huge number of people using the unified interface as their primary interface. So if they're going to change the way that works, this is a good time to do it. And I imagine a lot more will be using it once it's at parity with the October release.
But because when the October release comes, it's going to be more of an impetus for people to move to it. And then I would imagine by the April release, it's going to be something that if you're not there, then you're going to run into some trouble.
And it's a bit of deja vu.
But I think our reaction was, whoa, hello, CRM version 4.
Yeah, exactly.
We're talking about an always visible left sitemap. I guess the idea we had 12 years ago was fantastic. Let's do that again.
Well, I'm going through a transition for a customer right now, going from the web forms to unified interface for the customer service areas, and the tabs, when we initially saw them, what was that, 2 releases ago when they came into the unified interface, that was great. It seemed great, but in reality, in my implementation, it created so many tabs, and it was very confusing from a navigation perspective. So having that nav area back on the left-hand side of the screen, I think is going to be much more intuitive. To your point, especially if it's a new user, it's going to make it much easier for them to understand how to navigate into the UI, and it's going to make unified interface, I think, less intimidating than it may have been otherwise.
Now we just need big buttons on the bottom to navigate directly to the sitemap areas, and we'll have CRM4 version 4 back.
I think you missed the memo, Joel. They are there on the left-hand side. The sitemap is on the left-hand side down the bottom.
Yeah, it is.
Right.
It is down to the very bottom. That's true. On the left-hand side.
Yep.
But now, is that going to change the Outlook folders again?
Oh yeah, that's right. No, sitemap stays. Yeah, sitemap stays. So the only thing I remember about Outlook folders is they sorted alphabetically, and we begged them kind of do something about it, and they kind of or we can't do anything. It's Outlook, so go away. But it is Outlook, yeah. Look, as far as real estate on the left is concerned, I think the amount of research and money and development that went in circles around CRM 2013 onwards, if we collect all that money, I think it will be enough to give each user of CRM extra cash to buy an extra wide monitor for extra wide real estate, so they can keep it not collapsed on the left.
One of those cool curved ones, yeah.
So speaking of Outlook, so one piece of news that really wasn't widely reported. I wrote a tip of the day for it, but the Outlook app is an app module in version 9, but they didn't introduce initially the ability to configure it. And we know it's coming, and actually part of that configurability was recently released. The documentation was updated, I think, last week, and you now can customize the app module. Not totally, there's still customization scenarios that are coming, but the big one that a lot of people have asked for is you can now remove entities from that app module, because people say, I don't want to be able to set regarding to a zillion different entities. I just want these 5, and you now can do that. So that's good news. And that's available now.
That's been something that I know I've had customers asking for forever, since like 2011. So that's
well, should have slapped your developers for enabling not mail enabling, but enabling regarding on the 72 custom entities, all of them. Just to start with.
But here's the thing is there are cases where you want to be able to send an email from an entity through the application, but you don't want to be able to set regarding in the Outlook app. It's rare, but it does happen. And I think it's just some places where you want activities to be available, but you don't want to have them be able. But I agree with you. You should be able to. But there's system entities, though. The other thing is there's a lot of system entities that are enabled that you can't disable the activities on. But I never want to be able to set regarding to, I don't know, insert name of obscure the invoice entity or whatever. But it's enabled.
Right.
But wouldn't you drive it with permissions?
No, but think about this. If you have a system entity, you have permission to use it because you use this entity, but you don't want to regard activities to it. If it's a system entity that's enabled for activities, you can't turn that off.
Okay, yeah, I got that.
And so
right.
by being able to scale that down, it's a good thing.
Yeah. Any extra switch is a good switch on my book. So true. Speaking of Outlook and Exchange and sending emails, how's that for a challenge? I think Guyan raised it the other week. Was it someone else? But let's attribute it to Guyan. And he said that he's working on a solution for legal company, and it's a requirement. So the lawyers, when they send the email from Dynamics, they can go back and find the email exactly as it was sent. So effectively, you want to track sent items. So here you go, how to do that, because it's not in sent items folder, obviously. So how to do that.
See, now I thought that early on they said that server-side sync sent emails were going to show in your sent items.
Yeah, they're that's what they're supposed to. Yeah, because it's direct between Dynamics and Exchange. It's not through the com add-in anymore, or it's not through
but
the.
I don't think it really works that way.
But that's how it was advertised. I agree with you that that's how it was supposed to be.
This is one of those times where you want to question, I can see why they have that requirement. And I would equate it to a financial services company that I had that could not use any kind of marketing automation platform because they had their compliance person thought that everything had to go through their personal Outlook and be in their sent items, and because campaign emails weren't sent through that, and it's just that's admirable, but that's not realistic. It's not realistic, especially if you're using the business applications platform, that every single email that could be possibly sent. If you really want that, then I would say restrict the ability to send emails through the application and only send them through Outlook. It's only if a workflow sends an email really where that's an issue.
Well, and I also think that's a misinterpretation of the rule too.
For one of the customers who had a requirement basically saying that they had like a shared mailbox admin or something like this, right? So they had a requirement when people send from that mailbox. So some people are allowed to send from that email address, but they wanted to track those emails. So what they did is they asked for the rule, and we did it on Exchange level in Office 365. You can set up mail flow rules. So basically saying when sender is admin, BCC admin. So it's like, if you send in from that shared mailbox, BCC that shared mailbox, so it will land in that shared mailbox.
Right. And the other thing is, if you really want this scenario, I would introduce you to our friends at Riva, because they can if you hit the limits of server side sync, Riva can handle it.
Right.
Just like with mobile, there's an out of the box mobile, but it doesn't handle every scenario, and that's where there are third parties that can solve this.
It depends where you want to solve it. The other, I'm saying, it looks like you, Joel, trying to solve it on Dynamics side. I'm saying there are plenty of solutions on Exchange side as well. Like, for example, what's its name? Exclaimer, which allows you to flexibly add disclaimers, add signatures, reroute your email a bit, CC, rewrite senders, recipients, and things like that. So if you want to kind of flexible rules, how your email gets tracked, where copies getting sent, and so on and so forth, you most certainly can do that. Anyway, problem solved.
Cool. Well, George, what's this news I hear about you getting out of the hosting business?
I'm yet to put out a video of me doing that, but basically, remember I scheduled it for the last week. I was going to come on a podcast, nice, happy and tired, but after about, 8 years or so, I switched off the lights. So I dismantled the last track. So I moved the last client to the cloud. I dismantled the last track. I dismantled all the equipment, and I moved out the data center. That's
wow.
And I've got the video with obviously yakety yak music to show for it.
So wait. Did you wait till kind of attrition for all your hosted clients to move to the cloud, or did you force them?
Some I had to apply force. I think only a couple. They were happy where they were, like sitting surprise on 2011, right? So I had to apply force. The last one was not 2011 client.
You will be moving to the cloud.
2016 on premises long time ago, and moved out. The second client, second last client I moved was not even CRM client. So. I would drop like it or not bit, but pretty much.
Well, this is when you told us about this. I was very curious. Was a decision because of there's just no reason not to be in the cloud, or was it more of an economic decision that the amount of of support and infrastructure needed to maintain them as hosted clients just wasn't
It's probably a
reasonable.
combination of both, but the main reason is probably that requirements from the customers. So customer expectations in regards to the outsourced, let's call it generically outsourced hosting, would it be partner hosted or cloud?
Hmm.
Well, partner hosted is
Hmm.
cloud, right? So it's not like we were hosting in my backyard, right? So it's a big data center, and in fact, if I just lean over, I can see some of the AWS cages. They have like triple security on them, but it gives you an indication like scale of things. It's the center used by other big providers, right? So this aside, clients expectations came a long way since for the past like 8, 10 years since we started this business. So the whole process of providing the same compliancy, the data recovery capabilities became a bit costly. But even that aside, even though moving to the cloud, there is no direct financial benefit. And in some
Hmm.
cases, clients are paying just a bit more, not by much. And for me, like really no financial benefit, net profit is less after moving everyone to the cloud. But that's because there is less for us to do and less for me to worry about. That's probably one of the fundamental reasons. I
Hmm.
want to sleep at night. So I reached a point where it just were becoming too much. The worrying about equipment going down and things like that. So I wanted to kind of extricate myself of this responsibility. And I did skip an option where we would use someone else's, say, VMs to still host CRM for customers. So I could use, for example, Azure VMs and set up a cloud where I would host customers and kind of make it transparent for them. I did consider that, and in fact, we do have some
Hmm.
development deployments to do, say, 2016 development. We have a small 2016 deployment in the cloud that we kind of switch on and off on demand, so it doesn't cost us at all. So we switch it off, we pay for a bit for storage, and then switch it on when needed. We're paying something like, 50 cents an hour for the monstrosity of the machine, and that's it, right? Um, I could move clients. Uh, didn't make sense economically. I was expecting it to sit somewhere in between your own hardware and kind of full cloud. But going on the VMs into the cloud and building CRM on VMs turns out to be, it's not in between. It's actually on par with full outsourcing to, say, Microsoft.
Hmm.
It's just, yeah, it just wasn't working out.
But with much more overhead for
No,
you.
I wouldn't. Yeah, well, yes, but overhead of what? If client is on 2016,
Right, you're just your day-to-day support. You're having to do stuff as opposed to it being in the cloud with Microsoft
correct.
being
It
able
would
to
be less
manage the
headache,
support.
but overhead for me would be more. But as Microsoft move into a single version in the cloud, I want to move, I wanted to move, and I did, to a single version for all my customers. So it doesn't take 5 minutes for me to
Sure.
recall which version this customer is on. That wasn't becoming too much as well. So I simplified my support. It cost me about the same, maybe a tad more. Support is simplified. Everyone is there. Um, all straightforward. All developers working on the same versions. The only probably challenge is for ISV solutions, where you have to kind of support some of the previous versions. For that, we have VMs that are mostly switched off, and we switch them on when needed. As far as customers concerned, they're all in the cloud. They're all in Office 365. Um, the one thing I did find out, I mean, no offense to Microsoft, but I found that moving small domain with controller with virtual just machine which was virtualized VM, right? Moving to Azure, when I read the list of prerequisites, it's like you have to do this and that and this and that, and disable and install and the drivers and this and that and this, and then maybe it will work. Go to AWS, and it says, yeah, you don't have to do anything. Just upload VHD disk, done. And it worked. That was shocking. Shocking.
Yeah, so no more 2 a.m. alerts for George. He gets his beauty sleep, and customers are taken care of. It's beautiful.
And it's all Microsoft fault from now
on. Related topic, we got confirmation that the on-premises version of version 9 will be released in the October timeframe. So that's a big deal.
What's
had a couple of conversations.
What's on premises? Remind me again.
Well, here's the thing: is I had some conversations with some customers who have been asking about it. When is V9 coming? When is V9 coming? And it's good news. I got news about when V9 is coming.
Damn!
And
I moved out too soon.
And it was kind of a uplift and then let down, because then they realized that, oh wait, it's going to be 9.02 on premises, and probably 9.1 is coming. So the people on 8.2 immediately start thinking, so wait, I'm going to be in the same boat I am now, where I am immediately behind, and there's no guarantee that there's going to be any future updates for me. So I'm still kind of on. I'm better, but it's still not all the goodies that are in the release notes for the fall.
But I think we're at a point where on-prem customers can't take the mindset that they're behind. There's just a different pattern. They're always going to be up to date if they're on the most recent release. It's not a sense of that they're behind it from the cloud. It's just there's capabilities that are in the cloud that may not ever become on-premise, or they may be a hybrid solution to connect to the cloud to get that capability.
Where it's a little bit painful is if you have a business need for a feature that's released, like some of the updates to the Outlook app or something like that, and you see that coming out online and you're on the latest version of on-premises, but you can't use it. That's when it stings a little bit.
Right. Like if you wanted to take advantage of marketing.
Yeah. But if you want to do that, you really should be in the cloud anyway. So anyway, it's good news for people who are on premises who can't move to the cloud yet. And there are some of those out there. I think the vast majority of new deployments over the last at least 2 years have been to the cloud, but there still are some very large on-premises customers who, for one reason or not, can't go there yet. So it's great to see Microsoft supporting them, and that some of the hopefully, and we haven't seen everything that's involved, but I'm really glad that people on premises can take advantage of the improved app designer, can take advantage of hopefully the unified interface, the improved Outlook app, much better mobile. So this is very good news for on-premises people.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so we are going to be at Ignite. George, are you going to be at Ignite?
Yes. Unfortunately, I didn't put the words Power Apps into my proposed presentation, so I'm just going as attendee, not as a speaker this time around.
Right.
Well, don't fret, George.
Wait. You will be presenting, because we have our official podcast slot for Ignite Tuesday at 11:30 to 12:15. If you're there, you can come watch live. That's the same studio where some really big name podcasts like Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and some other large big podcasts are going to be there. And then there's us.
and you know what? If you show up live, there might be some swag for you. I'm just saying.
Okay. Well, I hope you remember to bring that swag.
Well, I'll remember, because I said it. So I'm now committing myself to making sure there's swag.
All right. So then we have some other news, exciting news about the CRM Audio Network. We have a new series starting next week. Sean, what's that series?
It's called Refresh the Cache. It's the Dynamics 365 Portal podcast with Nick Dolman and Colin Vermander.
So you thought we covered all the niches? You're wrong.
That's right. And I will say it is the most polite of all the podcasts on the network.
Because it's coming from Canada, right?
Yes. And I said that jokingly in the introduction, and not 2 seconds later, no, you go ahead. No, sorry, you go ahead. It's unbelievable.
We should call it Refresh the Cache, please.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a really good podcast focused on portal technology. We had some good conversation and very informative for me. So I think people will enjoy it.
Yeah, and I should mention when we do our Ignite podcast, we will have somebody from Microsoft there. We haven't confirmed exactly who yet, but mark my words, we will have somebody from Microsoft there.
Yes, indeedy.
Okay,
and we will be recording other podcasts while at Ignite and at Summit next month.
That's right. So George, you have a tool of the week recommendation for us.
Oh, yes. After all the brouhaha that happened with the Microsoft buying GitHub and all sort of stuff, when I was moving, customers out, I had some private code repositories. I wanted to get rid of that as well. Also, I wasn't too happy with the Bitbucket that we've been using for ages. It became slow. Don't know why, but all operations would take an instant on, say, GitHub, and it would take a few unknown seconds extra on Bitbucket. Extra 5 seconds waiting to connect, extra 5 seconds. So I decided to do some research and say, that's it. I'm simplifying my storage. I'm using way too many repositories, plus different kinds. So I was using Visual Studio one, and I was using some leftovers Mercurial over there, and a Bitbucket mixed of Mercurial and Git, and GitHub, and all sort of stuff. So anyway, so I decided to, whatever. Well, let's consolidate. So I did some research. Okay, Git it is, right? I still have some couple clients, I believe, that sits on Visual Studio, and they're quite happy. So we're using Git on Visual Studio. So those clients are aside, right? So the rest of projects where clients kind of don't give a hoot about where you store the code, right? So they leave it up to you. Typical development where clients don't interfere in development processes. So the competition was effectively between GitHub and Bitbucket. Bitbucket lost because I don't know what happened. It's just since they've been acquired by Atlassian, it just wasn't going right for me. So the one I don't mind paying. There's not overhead is like tiny compared to other things. Particularly, I have all the cash in the world after moving clients out of hosting business, and now I'm going to sell all this aged hardware on eBay as vintage. I'm going to have lots of cash to pay for that. So it was GitHub, and then I came across of Gitlab. So the advantage of GitHub is kind of Microsoft is going that way, and a lot of open source development kind of de facto standards. So my decision was between these two, and guess what? The one thing I don't like about GitHub is if you have like a few dozens projects, and I bet all of you do, right? Historical maybe or what's not, they just all there. GitHub has a flat structure. There is no way to classify. So I'd look at the GitLab, and it's there. The structure where you can put something like private and /customer/customer name/project. So you can put like a folder-like structure on top of your storage, which makes it extremely easy to find, to classify, and locate the projects. Okay, so the decision I made, this personal, it's always personal. So GitHub still remains GitHub for me for the open source projects and for public projects. And GitLab is for private client storage. But then, of course, the next round came in, which client to use, right? So Visual Studio does have Git, but it's kind of, so there is a client from GitHub. There is a client called GitKraken. I'm not even sure how to pronounce it. And then GitKraken is a paid client, very well made. It's kind of very developer-y. I found the interface intimidating, and it's just a bit too much going on with the white on black colors. And I know I can change colors, but still too much going on. And I couldn't find kind of Couldn't find myself at home. So in the end, I settled on the product called Gitfork. And yeah, look, it's important. It's part of the daily life. We store everything in source control. We're not one of those kind of companies who, if client decides to walk away, we're saying, yep, okay, thank you very much for your business.
Wow, you
Here's
really
the source
tried a
code.
lot of them, huh?
Well, before we're saying, hey, look, if you walk away, you know the consequences, right? And then we say, thank you very much for your business. Here's the source code. So I did try a lot. So my recommendation is it's a mix between GitHub and Gitlab. For Gitlab for private storage, I did like it. It's fast and snappy. I like their boards. I would recommend just paying just a little bit because you get private boards. So you've got like issue boards. So you've got Kanban built in. So we're now trying 2 projects where they actually run entirely in GitLab. And so far, I'm liking it.
Okay. So I'll put links to all those in the show notes. What is the deal with some developers liking the white text on black background? Everything I've seen from usability studies shows that is much harder on your eyes. Why do you think some developers...
Not at nighttime. Not at nighttime. So what's happening, the white screens, they emit a lot of radiation that kind of strains your eyes just because of brightness.
Okay. And
it becomes unbearable at nighttime. Though, I have to say, if you never tried it, try it. On Windows 10, when you click on that button on the right-hand side, with notifications, there is a thing now called nightlight.
Yeah, it takes the blue. Doesn't it take the blue light out or whatever to make it?
It takes the blue, the high spectrum out. I think we did talk about it, and it creates a very nice ambient kind of orangey, nice warm.
Yeah,
brown.
kind of a brownish. Yeah, that's good. That's good. I like that. I actually use that on
I use it a lot
on some of my mobile devices. But I'm saying black background, white text, especially if you're presenting at a conference. If you use that, you should never keep it like that. Or if you're making videos on YouTube, change it to black and white. It's much easier contrast to see on a screen.
The other mistake people use is that it's okay to use white on black if you pick up a really nice fonts. People stay in with something like default Tahoma and Arial, and they just don't render well white on black. They're too thin, they're too lightweight. You need something meatier, chunkier fonts. So if you write in code, which this is all about, pick up something like Consolas or something like this, which makes it much kind of chubbier and more presentable. There are plenty of other fonts, and there are plenty of discussions about the fonts. I'm not a big fan of white on black, but I do use nightlight a lot. So when the environment is kind of dimmed, I switch on the nightlight. On airplanes, it's a godsend because any brightness level on the airplane, for some reason, is just way too bright, right?
All right, Hobbit, what's your favorite font?
Comic sans serif, right?
My favorite font
I bet Helvetica.
No, Century Schoolbook.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm serious. And it's because my wife and my daughter are teachers, and that has the most appropriate letter A, letter E. So I'm just used to using it because that's what they use.
Has anybody else tried the?
Huh?
Is that what they forced to use you at home? Bat Hobbit.
Hobbit.
That's what Sean has to write his permission slips in. All right. So has anybody else tried the Windows 10 Font Maker? There's an official Microsoft app where you can change your font, your handwriting into its own font, and as I say, you can make your typed documents as difficult to read as your handwritten ones.
So doctors all around rejoice. Hobbit.
Yes.
Hobbit, can I ask you a question?
Of course you can.
Is it just me, or I've got an impression that Joel has like about 36 to 38 hours every day.
Yeah.
As opposed to 24.
No, you're not mistaken. I'm not sure if he doesn't sleep, he's a robot, or he feasts on the souls of wayward people and just continues his his drive towards perfection. I don't know what
we have
it
a
is.
series on the network called Podcast about all that. So if you want to find out how I do it, listen to Podcast.
Well, actually, what I think it is, he says he bought a snake for his daughter and feeds it baby mice. I believe he's feeding on the baby mice himself. That's what I think it is.
The last bit I wanted to talk about on my list. We just did for the Bad Masterclass, we did a bit of promotion, as you have to let people know. And what's the best place to promote is Facebook, which kind of got humongous audience, and it's just a matter of finding out who your audience is and keep shoving the advertisement in their face, right? So, but it did provide some interesting insights into, gender bias that exists in Dynamics CRM or Dynamics 365 world. How we found out is you get the cost per lead in a Facebook, right? And turns out that everything else being equal, female lead is about 8 times more expensive than male lead. So if I want to reach out to females in Dynamics 365, it would cost me 8 times if I want to reach out to males. So that kind of gives you a perspective, the breakdown from unusual angle of advertisement.
Yeah. Does it matter what you're advertising, though? I mean, is it different?
I'm sure if you advertise in lipsticks, that male leads will be harder to find by. But in Dynamics world, when we kind of built our audience, the female leads were 8 times more expensive. As we narrowed down, we kind of by geographic region and kind of as you publish your advertisement, you have ability to tune your audience. As we started tuning, the gap kind of narrowed down, but it still remains quite high. So it's like by the factor of 5 right now. So, which is fair representation. If you look at the typical conference, which is not end user, but let's say developer, this is developer target. We're trying to target developers, right? So if you look at typical representation, that would be a fair assessment. So like 5 to 8 times more expensive because there's 5 to 8 times less females in this field than males. It's unfortunate, but interesting finding that advertisement gives you a different angle into challenge of kind of gender equality in our field.
So have you found your Facebook ad to be effective? I'm saying this because earlier on in the podcast I promoted a couple of episodes, and while I didn't put a big budget behind it, it netted probably 3 to 4 more ticks from views, downloads, likes, whatever metric you want to do. It wasn't significant.
Absolutely. Look, whether we like it or not, the Facebook is default place where people go to. There's over 2 billion people on Facebook, right? So there's a good chance that with a rare exception where people deliberately choose not to join or go to Facebook or keep it private for private matter only, I would say 95% of people in our field, they are on Facebook. They do follow, for example, Dynamics CRM group, which has about 8,000 members or something like this, right? It's very well run group and lots of kind of nice discussions going on there. So definitely there is a target audience there. So and you can reach out to them. And every now and then, it's nice to promote the post that you believe is important and reach out kind of for more eyes. Remember that Facebook uses different algorithms to put stuff in front of your eyes. So effectively, you may be following tip of the day page or CRM audio page, right? But it doesn't show up in your feed because the other items takes priorities. Or it's not kind of up enough in your feed. You never scroll enough through all of your feed, right? So you keep scrolling and then you stop and you go back to the top, right? So you lost it. So effectively what the advertisement does, it just pushes it up a bit in people's feeds and people kind of notice it and they say, oh, that's interesting. And it's kind of, you get probably out of the promo, you get like a handful of new followers and things like that. And it doesn't cost a lot. So it is very effective, right? So if you do it right, it is very effective. But you need to know your audience.
Right. And I posted something on, and I thought it was interesting. I posted the same thing on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter the other day, and I looked at the actual stats and where they came from. And between LinkedIn and Twitter, I have roughly the same number of connections, but LinkedIn probably had 20% more actual clicks through on it, and it was the exact same message. Now, probably some people are seeing it on both, so factoring that in. But I just thought.
No, I mean Twitter is lots of noise. So on Twitter,
right, a lot more noise, a lot more noise.
And I very rarely now go on Twitter to just go to Twitter. I go there to post stuff.
So you're creating noise, you're not helping to reduce it. Yeah, okay.
Exactly. Well, this has been good, George. We're glad to have you back with us.
Indeed,
it's been a while, and glad you can have a chance to be with us at Ignite. So we don't get all the fun of interviewing all the Microsoft people. We'll look forward to that, and look forward to all the other shows we have next week. Next week should be a busy week on the network. So we have.
And yes, my trip to North America this fall. You see, I'm switching terminology now. So this fall, my trip is going to be a very peaceful one, because I'm not going to be sitting on the edge and thinking, should I jump on the next plane because the hard disk broken down and things like that. So it's going to be a very peaceful one. I'm going to sleep at night.
When you're here, I'll share the secrets of how to have a 36-hour day.
Fantastic. Looking forward to it.
All right. This has been CRM Audio, the Dynamics 365 podcast. Send us your feedback at voice@crm.audio. Check out our other shows at crm.audio, or subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, and any place else podcasts are offered. This podcast is a production of Dynamics Podcast, LLC.